Today I'll be introducing three members on behalf of Mr. Khalil. They will each be speaking for 1 minute. Please save all questions for the end. First, I'd like to introduce Bahar Amzi, the legal director for the Center for Constitutional Rights, who presented argument today.
Good morning. My name is Bahar Azmi, A-Z-M-Y, from the Center for Constitutional Rights. We're in court today because the United States government, after arresting our client, Mahmoud Khalil, spirited him overnight to Louisiana in order to avoid the jurisdiction of the courts in New York and New Jersey. We were here to insist that the court take jurisdiction of this case, bring him back to New Jersey, and then immediately thereafter rule on his request for release, request for bail, and rule on his broader petition that his detention is unconstitutional because, as we said in court, this is not any routine immigration case or habeas transfer case. This is a case where the United States government has created a policy targeting Palestinian activists and specifically Mahmoud Khalil for arrest, detention, and potential removal because the United States government disagrees with his constitutionally protected right to dissent from U.S. foreign policy. So what they've done in court today is dangerous. What they're ultimately trying to do to so many student activists is chilling.
Next, you'll be hearing from Razmi Qasim, co-director of CLEAR.
Good morning, Ramzi
Please
Qasim.
speak up.
Sure. Good morning, Ramzi Qasim, CLEAR Project, RAMZIKASSEM. The most important thing to keep in mind about what's going on with Mr. Khalil is that he is not alone. There are people behind you who are here for him, who are still standing in solidarity with the Palestinian people in defense of their human rights, and in solidarity with the many others at this point who, like Mr. Khalil, are either in ICE custody because of their constitutionally protected speech or are at risk of ICE detention and deportation because of their speech and their viewpoints, which the government happens to disagree with. So the most important thing to take away from today is that no matter what happens in court, what's most important is for all of us to keep up the pressure to let this government know that it cannot suppress speech, any form of speech, including pro-Palestinian speech, and that what happens outside of court is oftentimes much more important than whatever takes place in court. The judge, of course, is going to make his ruling. That is, we've done all we can on that front, and we wait that ruling. The part that we can control is keeping the pressure up, because of course the government is banking on these people behind you who are protesting, who are rallying for Mahmoud and the others to dissipate. They're banking on media attention dissipating so that they can get away with doing what they are doing to Mahmoud and the others. And so it's very important for all of us to keep up our efforts and to keep up our work until Mahmoud is home.
Free Mahmoud! Free Mahmoud! Fuck fascists! Free Mahmoud!
Thank you so much. Lastly, we'll bring up Executive Director of ACLU of New Jersey, Amol Sinha.
Good morning. Amol Sinha, Executive Director, ACLU New Jersey, AMOLSINHA. As we await the court's ruling, what I am reminded of is the egregious nature of what the government has done. It is anti-democratic, un-American, illegal, and unconstitutional to suppress speech, censor somebody, detain them, and attempt to deport them and revoke their green card for speaking their mind. Regardless of where you might fall on the ideological spectrum, regardless of what your speech is, if you care about free speech, if you care about democracy, if you care about the pro-Palestinian or any other sort of advocacy that folks have in this country, you should be outraged by what the government has done to our client, Mahmoud Khalil. Look, as we await the decision from today's hearing, I want to make sure that we echo what we're seeing in the streets. The momentum is with us, the people are with us, and the power is with us. It's important for us to stand strong and continue, because we're not going to back down when our government tries to attack our most fundamental and most bedrock principles of our democracy. Thank you so much.
Miss, can you just talk a little bit about the arguments we just heard in there were extremely technical case law arguments. What is your interpretation of why the government is spending so much time arguing this issue of whether the case should be heard not here but in Louisiana, rather than move along to all the other issues that they claim they also want to move quickly on?
Yeah, the government's motivation here is to delay and, as much as possible, the adjudication of the actual legality of their unconstitutional actions. They want to avoid that, and they also want to claim power, to take power away from the courts and the court's jurisdiction, and have their own authority to move someone wherever they want, and therefore try and avoid the jurisdiction or power of this court to actually hear their claims.
Could you explain to us, there was reference to something contextualized with the tough student, that you seem to have information about what the government is doing, and then also the judge made reference to one line where he wanted to know if the government had accepted that Kristi Noem that they had jurisdiction over her. Can you talk about that? One sentence is really powerful, isn't it, Counselor?
So, the court was asking the United States government, even if the custodian in Louisiana isn't before the court, does the court have the power to issue an order to the Secretary of Homeland Security, who is named? The government scarily equivocated on that point. There is no doubt that the court has power to issue an order to the Secretary of Homeland Security to bring Mahmoud Khalil back to this district. Do you want to take the...
Sure. The case, the incident that my colleague alluded to with the student at Tufts, Ms. Rumeza Oster, a graduate student, most people have seen the video of how masked ICE agents took her when she was headed to Iftar to break the fast. What happened in her case is that her lawyers did go to court in Massachusetts, and they did obtain an order from the court that was supposed to prohibit the government from moving her. But because the government had already moved her across state lines, the government took the position in that case that the order was ineffectual, which was the answer to the judge's question today, because he was asking appropriately whether that would be a solution. And unfortunately, the way the government is moving in these cases shows that it would not be a solution. They will move people across state lines, as they did with Ms. Oster, as they did with Mr. Khalil, as they did with Dr. Suri, and others at this point, in order to avoid the sorts of court orders that the judge today was asking about. So going back to the fundamental question, the reason they are fighting so hard on jurisdiction, as extraordinary as that is because they want to buy time. They want to buy time in the hope that all of you will go away, buy time in the hope that all of these people will go away, so that they can get away with what they're trying to do to Mr. Khalil and to others.
Mr. Khalil's wife is...
of your argument when you're up at the podium.
What's the question?
What did you think of the judge's questions to you in your argument while you were up at the podium?
The judge is extremely smart, very well prepared, asked hard questions for sure that we were ready for, and we're optimistic that when he retires to chambers and reviews the briefs, he'll agree with us and reject the dangerous position proffered by the government.
Mr. Khalil's wife is due very soon. Can you give us an update on how he's doing, on how often they're able to speak, and just how she's feeling with all this?
As everybody can imagine, Noor Abdullah, Mr. Khalil's wife, is going through an extremely difficult period of time. She has said publicly that Mr. Khalil was her main support during her pregnancy. He prepared all her meals. He made sure she took the medications she needed to take. The fact that he was taken away from her in her 8 months of pregnancy, she's supposed to give birth in April. She's a U.S. citizen. Their child will be a U.S. citizen. He was a green card holder. They had every reason to expect stability and to look forward to the birth of their first child. Instead, she has to wonder whether he will be here when that child is born. And that is an injustice that I think everyone here, certainly the people in the back who have massed consistently to support Mr. Khalil and to support the human rights of Palestinians, oppose and object to it. I think most Americans would also find that objectionable. That's not how the government should move. There's no reason for him to be in detention, no matter what the government's claims are on the immigration side. He should be with his family, and he can fight his case in immigration court from there.
And just your reaction to the Secretary of State saying they're canceling 300
I have a question about the timeline here. I believe in court that one of the jurisdictional cases that was brought up was decided in 2 years. So are you saying this could take that long, or?
You mean this court's decision? No, we expect, and he signaled that he's going to try and decide as quickly as possible.
Mr. Asmi, how disappointing was it that he would not take up your argument for bail today? You still believe that's the most urgent question?
We would have preferred that he heard our arguments on bail today and decided everything together as quickly as possible, but we're hopeful that he will decide this issue, this jurisdictional issue first, and then move very, very quickly to decide the bail motion, given the sort of outrageous circumstances of this case and the exigent circumstances of this case, including now running over 2 weeks of confinement and his wife's impending birth.
Can you get your reaction to the Secretary of State saying he canceled?
We're going to be facilitating one-on-one interviews on the side, if everyone would like. Thank you so much for coming today. Thank you.
That's not her. I'm supposed to be speaking. I'm just keep it a little further. This one. Right here, the gray overcoat in front of you.
Over 8 months pregnant. He said that he would decide the jurisdiction motion first, and then take bail up very quickly after. We trust that could happen in a matter of days altogether.
Okay, got it. And you were sort of talking about what would I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but almost like a precedent sort of set of what could happen to other defendants if they adopt this rule. Could you say a little bit more? I think you're talking about how it could be moved from, in theory, he or somebody else could be moved from Alabama to Texas. Yes. Can you say a little bit more about what you meant by that?
Yeah, I mean, the reason we're here is that the federal court in New York said the jurisdiction should be in New Jersey, and the government's resisting that because they moved him, spirited him away 1,400 miles to Louisiana, where they can benefit from the delay, they can benefit from what they think is better law, and they can benefit from preventing this court from actually hearing the merits of his case. So our point in court today is the government can't just keep spiriting people from jurisdiction to jurisdiction to avoid having a case actually heard here in New Jersey. That's the dangerous precedent, and that's the precedent they want.
And it sounded like you alluded to with the case in Massachusetts, it sounded like that's something that one was also something you're thinking about too, right? Yes,
the government here moved Mr. Khalil before to Louisiana while his petition was pending in New York. They might move him again, and we know that they moved Dr. Suri from Georgetown multiple times, and Rumesa, the Tufts graduate student, has also been moved multiple times, including after a court issued an order. This administration wants to use the massive power of our immigration laws to send a signal of repression to all predominantly Palestinian activists and other activists as well. And they are using the device of moving somebody around to further that whole scheme.
And one last thing, when the judge was talking about sort of the lack of, I guess, or the dearth of cases that sort of like this, what was your reaction to that? Because it seemed like that maybe was perhaps a point of disagreement between the two.
Yeah, the court pointed to a lack of precedent on this particular question, and the reason there's a lack of precedent is the government has not taken this position before. Mm-hmm. So courts haven't heard these kinds of questions because they're trying to create a radical new proposition of law that undermines the power of the courts and takes power to the executive branch to do exactly what they're doing in this case and multiple others, which is to prevent people from hearing their claims about their unconstitutional detention to be heard in a lawful court.
Okay. Thanks so much, Mr. Aslan.
Yes.
Hi, Mr. Aslan.
Hi.
Our reporter Alexis McAdams has some questions for you over speakerphone offensive.
Hands off our students now!
We want justice, you say how?
We want justice, you say how?
Hands off our students now!
Hands off our students now!
We want justice, you say how?
We want justice, you say how?
I say how?
We want justice, you say how?
Hands off our students now!
Hands off our students now!
We want justice, you say how?
We want justice, you say how?
From the Palestinian Youth Movement, Miriam, thank you. Release Mahmoud right now! Release Mahmoud right now! Release Mahmoud right now!
It's starting with the Palestine movement, but it's on everybody right now. And that's why we all need to take a stand in the streets and say we refuse to be silent while our rights are being taken away from us. Woo! Now the Trump administration has made their position clear. Anybody who stands against genocide is now considered an enemy of the US. Simply for standing against genocide. The Trump administration has carried out attacks on Yemen, airstrikes that have killed over 53 people, including children. They're bragging about it and sending emojis, pretending like this is something normal. And in Gaza right now, there's non-stop bombardment of people who have been starving for a month because Israel has had a siege on Gaza. Not a single item of food or aid or medical equipment has entered for over a month. This is what we're speaking out against. This is what we're standing against. What we're standing for is freedom and liberation and dignity for all. And they can't stop us from all fronts against our people. Shame! Just yesterday, Marco Rubio said that he has revoked at least 300 student visas. And the reason he said that he revoked the visas is simply because it was students who were speaking out for justice.